Hey there, welcome to the Open House podcast with your host, Jesse Meadow. We're starting season two. We've taken a nice long vacation off during the post pandemic. Our first season there, we really focused a lot on admissions representatives, communication representatives at our independent schools, and really trying to get through those COVID mitigation efforts. And now that we're coming out on the end of it, conference season's back up. We've been socializing a lot more. And we're really trying to get a little bit more of a focus on some industry experts and really try to help with some insights on how they can do things and build up their enrollments out of this post-pandemic period. And so first up on this second season, we have a great guest for us. Schneider B is going to be with us, and he's going to be talking about inbound marketing, how that can affect your schools and really build up your inquiry base. So without further ado, I don't want to waste anyone's time. Let's have him jump right in. The man, the myth, the legend. How are you, sir?
Hi, Jesse. I'm so excited to be here, man. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I'm glad you can make it. I know there's been, some big news for you, a lot of transitions.
Yeah.
Everybody seems to have been transitioning these past 2 years or so, whether you're literally moving. I live here in Florida. Everyone seemed to have been coming here for the past 2 years, or transient through some positions and jobs. I'd love to kind of get some feedback, introduce yourself to everyone, and kind of tell us about where you came and what you're doing now.
Yeah, it goes back, and I hate to go way back, but it goes back to my previous school where I started at S2E1 Academy. So I'm based in Pittsburgh, and it was 2008-9. And I share this history because it's relevant to what I'm doing now and inbound marketing. So, anyways, you're probably too young to remember this, Jesse. I'm old now, but like, economy tanked. What are we gonna do? Our interest indicators, so our inquiries, our applications, and our visits were like a 1 month trailing average to the market. Everything was just bad. So, we didn't know where to go. So we tried traditional outbound marketing methods that we hadn't used, things like billboards, placards at the Pittsburgh International Airport, a couple other crazy things. But what we realized is that those are super expensive, hard to measure, and then most importantly, didn't affect our inquiries, our applications, or our visits. So found the inbound marketing book by Brian Halligan and Dharmesh Shah. And this is super cheesy, but it was like the light bulb moment. I'm thinking, this is it, man. This is what we have to try. So I share this story because that's where the blog schneiderb.com came from. I started the blog because I didn't want to screw up anything at school. This is the naivete. Like, I just didn't know. So what I did is I started the blog to try and experiment with the inbound marketing methods I wanted to use at S2E1. And I thought, if I use air quotes here, if you're listening, I'm using air quotes. If I screw anything up, I can screw it up under my own name and not school.
That's right.
So what I did is I quickly realized that you don't screw anything up in marketing. People just don't pay attention. So then you iterate and try to make it better. What I actually, and this is embarrassing, didn't really figure out is that I didn't expect the blog to do anything. It was really my sandbox. But then, lo and behold, I'm using techniques to get found, and I'm getting found. And then it just it took off from there. And the big news is that I've left S2E1 and I'm out on my own. So I'm doing Schneider B Media full time and since July 1st. So
All right.
So it's exciting. It's as we were lucky enough to run into each other at EMA in Florida. So that was really fun. But as I shared there, I'm 50% super excited and 50% scared out of my mind. This is a new endeavor, and I've worked in schools my whole life. So this is fun.
Interesting fact that when we got started 2.5 years ago, through my research, somehow your blog came up. And I actually read a lot of your articles, and a lot of the basic books that I started with came from one of your book lists. I think there was utility was on that, inbound marketing from the HubSpot, word of mouth marketing. I got a crash course because of your blog. Little did you know.
They might still be here.
There's some on
my bookshelf.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So don't think it was for naught. So I'm excited for you.
Well, thank you. And thank you for the kind words about the blog and the books, but I have enjoyed that. In my transition, I mean, I was really leading two lives. It was the
Hmm.
school life and my commitment to school, and I did enjoy where I was, during school, I'm doing school. I'm committed there, I'm working there, and enjoyed that work, enjoyed my team. It was great. It was just this, and then I'd come home nights and weekends and I'd be doing Schneider B because it's a passion, it's something I love. So I was constantly juggling that and then trying to, stay married. So love my wife, would like to spend time with her and then, be with our kids. So one of the things I've appreciated is that I can now focus on this full time. And to your point with having different clients, it, th- there's a methodology to inbound, but how it manifests itself in each school is a little different because it depends on
Yep.
the personality of the school, the expertise they have in house versus they don't have. So that's been really really fun for me. It allows me to be creative, and do things that I like to do.
I love it. I love it. But let's dive into that. Um, for someone that might be jumping into this on a very basic level, I guess can we define, help us define what inbound marketing is, and I guess from there what you've seen be very useful methods of using it for schools. I imagine there's a multitude, and it would vary depending on the school. But kind of define that for us, and tell us about the different varieties and different ways that you can actually use that to your advantage.
Yeah. So I'll jump in. What inbound marketing is, I like to start with what it isn't. So, um, traditional marketing or outbound marketing or interruption marketing is really the opposite of inbound. And what those things are, a print ad in the newspaper interrupts your reading pleasure, a radio ad interrupts your listening pleasure, on and on and on. Those are becoming less effective. People don't pay attention. They're becoming more and more expensive because they're becoming less effective and people don't pay attention. And then ultimately, there's technology that has been um, created or in use now that makes those things go away. So, DVR or streaming, although you can do some stuff there, or um, satellite radio, whatever,
Hmm.
right? So,
Yeah.
inbound, which was a coin or a term coined by HubSpot, and let me just use a little asterisk here. You do not have to use the HubSpot software to do inbound marketing. I'm a huge fan of HubSpot. The
Yeah.
software's fantastic, but that's a whole nother conversation. But they coined the term, and the idea is that, and they initially when they coined it, they used a magnet a lot in their imagery. So the idea is that you're attracting people to you, and then
Hmm.
ultimately you attract them to you through um, content, through basically through Google. It's
Right.
digital, getting found, and the five steps at a very high level are persona. So develop your persona. Think of keywords, um, search engine optimization, creation of content, which for schools most likely is a blog, the written word, and then social. And then I always say uh, social media by itself will not solve your enrollment challenges. I've learned the hard way, but as part of an inbound strategy, super effective, super effective.
Not only effective, I might even push that it's necessary.
Yeah,
If you don't have that presence, it's not really going to be able to do what you need it to do. We talk a lot about that on our side because we do more of our side of things is the paid side. And
yeah,
obviously different ways that you can do that, and the normal, we call it the enrollment funnel, but this sales funnel, I guess.
yeah,
um, we stress to them, our clients, the importance of having that organic content. You can't just have
yeah,
this, you can't just have that. You have to be present in all of these different ways so that when that interest comes up, or like you were saying, SEO, that you pop up, you're able to be found, or an idea, on a brand awareness stage, being able to pop up in front of families in a variety of different ways, especially with our boarding schools. A lot of things that we do with them is, what kind of organic content do you have? Not so much selling the school, but selling what a boarding school is, and why choose a boarding school, or why choose an independent school, or these type of things, are all organic, free, but they build around the campaigns that you might have on the paid side. They build on the inbound campaigns that you might be having on your organic side. So, those kind of things are really crucial. And I would say, I might even say that you probably need to be in that social category, at least for the parents of today.
Yeah, I actually think inbound's necessary now. I've been
Yep.
talking about it for years. I know people are sick of me talking about it, but like I keep talking about it because people aren't doing it. But I want to go back to something you said, Jesse, because I think baked into one of the things um, that you talked about with organic content is that it's not about the school, and
Hmm.
so many schools seem to miss this. And they even get internal, and I've seen it at my former school, and I've seen it at other schools I've helped. They get internal pushback because you'll see faculty, like you're creating content for a blog, and you'll see faculty go, well, that's not about school or that's not about whatever. And I'm like, that's the whole point. Like, you
Hmm.
need to create content that is going to be helpful. Goes back to that utility book, Jay
Yep.
Bear,
Yep.
but is for the persona that you're trying to attract. Who are you trying to attract? And again, high level. So who are you trying to attract? What will they type into Google? And you expect your school website or a piece of your uh, content show up in those search results. Get them to the page and then allow them to convert. That's the secret sauce right there.
That's it.
And I think so many schools miss parts of that. They get one, they don't get another, and that's frustrating.
We did a presentation where we talked about the enrollment funnel and kind of how things go and what the expectation should be at each one of these stages. Everyone always thinks, okay, well, you spend money on Facebook, it's all conversions. Okay, well, no. There's a brand awareness stage, there's a decision making stage, and then you have your conversion. So in going through that, we gave them some graphics about, okay, here's a paid ad. I'm not even talking about organic, but here's a paid ad. Here's how all this interacts. They click this, they go here. Now you can retarget this here. An inbound piece, a blog piece that you've got. How does that pop up here? They come from here. All of this is in this digital ecosystem and playing around each other. So, like you were saying, if they only got one part and not the other, it's not really going to be doing what they want it to. And that kind of leads me to my next question. How do you see inbound marketing affecting schools? I know we touched on SEO. Is there more ways that the digital presence of a school is boosted other than maybe just a blog? Maybe there are some other inbound methods that how does that affect their digital presence?
The thing for me, and I've seen so many schools make mistakes around this. And Jesse, I want to highlight something you said. We're not throwing shade on schools. We've both been in them.
Yep.
It's they just don't have that expertise. It's what we do now. Now that I'm a vendor full time, like you, I've gone to the dark side, right? But
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
it's what we think about. And the again asterisk with schools. Schools are notorious for putting things on people's plates but never removing things.
That's right.
So and humans can only do so much. So again, I'm not trying to pick on schools, and I know you're the same way. Back to inbound though. Um, and this is why, the one thing I'm trying to do with schools is a big package, which is you kind of have to do it all. Like you've got to. I've seen so many schools do one thing, and I'm sure you've seen this, although you don't have to
Hmm.
out anybody. They hire you, you bring them traffic, but because they don't have conversion points, because they don't have lead nurturing emails, because they don't have other things, they're like, oh, it didn't work. Well,
Hmm.
yeah, it did work. You hired us to do A, we've done A, but you also need to do B, C, D. So where I've tried to educate schools is there's a full process here um, that you have to do, which is drive, like people have to know you exist.
That's right.
And I get so I laugh a lot because people are so worried about what their website looks like. They're so worried about the color or this image or whatever. And I'm like, I go, well, okay, I'll say this, then I'll walk it back. It doesn't matter. Of course, it matters, right? But it doesn't matter because if they can't find it and then they
Hmm.
don't convert from an anonymous visitor into a prospective family, even simply getting their email address, what's the point? So I have a great photo and I have our colors a little, we're using a different, blue. Well, who cares? Who
Yeah.
cares? So what I think schools should do, again, I like to read, Jesse. So that's where the Inbound Marketing book by Brian Halligan and Dharmesh Shah is a great place to start to understand the full methodology, the full strategy. I also recommend that schools buy a copy for yourself. Let's say you're the marketing director, and then buy a copy for the other decision makers in your school around this. So maybe it's, who do you answer to? Director of advancement, director of
That's right.
admission, head of school, and have them read it. They can skim it. It's easily digestible so that they have a sense of what you're trying to do. And then, if you listen to this today and you don't know what a persona is, I would start with personas. And personas are simply semi-fictional representation of who you're trying to attract. So it's like your ideal prospective family. Start there. Start with persona development, and then things will flow. The other thing, since I'm on my soapbox now, Jesse, thank you, is I'm so frustrated that schools aren't doing SEO.
Mhm.
They don't, and they spend so much time and worry so much about social. It's important. I'm not saying it's not important, but if you just look at a web traffic perspective, so when you're done listening to this or watching this, go to your Google Analytics, see how much traffic social drove to your website over a year, and how much traffic organic search, which
Mhm.
is a function of SEO,
Mhm.
drove to your website over the last year. You will be shocked at the difference. Organic search is the main driver. Schools don't pay attention to that at all. Most schools
Yeah.
don't pay attention to that. So I'll shut up now.
No,
But yeah,
no, you're absolutely right. And it's a vanity metric. You know
yeah,
what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah,
Like
yeah,
with social media, they see it, they're on
yeah,
it, they see other schools on it, and so they're like, we have to be here.
yeah.
They're not searching constantly, so they don't notice all of the things that come with search and how that really kind of affects everything. And even if they are aware, um, getting what they need done, getting the keywords, getting the reports, building out the articles that will
Yeah,
fit with that search term or search phrase, so that you'll pop up and become more
yeah,
relevant. That a lot of that is missed. So SEO on its own. Then you get into Google Ads and paying it. Okay, well, we're going to push this article here, or we're going to have this landing page build, and everything has to kind of align. And we've got relevance scores, and it's daunting. But I agree with you. It's more important to focus on that front end when I'm actually searching in my browser and starting that whole journey.
yep,
What steps have you taken to make sure that you're in front of me? It's crucially important.
yeah.
On the inbound side, we've talked a little bit about this. How have you seen, through your plethora of experience with this, both with Sewickley and now with your clients, how have you seen that really increase inquiry?
So two thoughts here. One, I know for a fact that inbound marketing will increase inquiries. There are two kind of what are they? Warnings, I guess. Maybe that's a little bit
Mm-hmm.
of a strong word, right? It's the first warning with inbound is that it's not. Well, there's probably three. The first is that it's not a magic bullet. It takes time to set up. I call it the machine. There's no
Mm-hmm.
machine, but like there's a lot of, as we're talking about, all these pieces and parts that need to be set up that schools historically haven't done for whatever reason. So it's not a magic bullet. The second thing is that, in my opinion, you need to have all the pieces. So you need to drive traffic, you need to convert, you need to have lead nurturing, you need to have more content, and that goes really into the third piece, or the third warning, which is that inbound marketing is an engine, and that engine needs fuel to run, and the fuel's content. And I'm telling you, blogging, from my experience, I think you need to, it's got to be once a week or once every 2 weeks. But
Mm-hmm.
whatever it is, I would probably, let's just say once every other week. You've got to be consistent. And while that sounds like, hey, no problem, it's a
Mm-mm.
pain in the butt.
Mm-hmm.
It's a pain in the butt to go again and again and again. So it's a commitment from the school, but it works. Like, so that
Yeah.
you have those three things there and it works. The other thing about inquiries, my former head of school, my boss, we were behind closed doors one day, and I was bringing inbound. He was, I bought him the book. I used my own advice, right? I bought
That's
him the
right.
book. He read it
Get the
or he
stakeholder
skimmed it.
buy-in. Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
he skimmed it. He's like, okay, man, go. And I would keep him up to date with what was going on. And he was, crazy enough to let my crazy go, which I appreciate. But then we were talking one day about like those vanity metrics. I think it was Facebook, Jesse, as we were blown. He's like, Brennan, I don't care about that. Like,
Mm,
I don't care if you have 1,000 fans on Facebook or 5,000 fans on Facebook. What I care about is inquiries.
hmm.
Or for us, it was interest indicators, inquiries, applications, and visits. So if all this stuff that you're talking about over here doesn't translate into our interest indicators, it doesn't matter. And that was really good advice early on to, at least in my mind, to go, oh, that all that stuff is just vanity. It's just,
Yep.
it doesn't affect what I really needed to affect, which is inquiries which lead to students.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely. So, I know we touched a little bit on this, when we were talking about persona building and such. But the schools, they listen to the show.
yeah,
They've gone Schneiderb.com. They've drank the Kool-Aid.
yeah.
Where do they get started? Where does one get started? And I guess from there, you kind of throw into the mix what works best for schools, what you've seen work best for school, and then how do you get that started?
Yeah, that's a good question. The first thing, again, I would recommend reading the book. That again, Inbound Marketing, Brian Halligan, Dormesh Shaw. But if you don't like to read, here's what I would do. So ultimately, schools are going to have multiple personas. So let's say you're a pre-K to 12, right? Day school. You're going to have a persona probably for early childhood and maybe one for lower school, maybe for middle, maybe for high school. If you're a boarding school, you might have international boarders, you might have domestic boarders. Those are different things. You're going to
Mhm.
attract those people differently. So think of the persona that you need probably to pay attention to the most. So like let's just say pre-K to 12, it's all about it's all about early childhood, right? We got to bring them in young. So I'm just making assumptions here, but think
Yeah.
about that persona. Think about the makeup of your current families, um, and who they are now. So that raises a question of aspirational or not. So you have to wrestle with that as a school. But the other thing is, from my experience, because we screwed this up the first time we did this, Jesse, we spent way too much time on persona development. You have to spend some time, but we spent way too much time. I believe it's an art and a science. So you have to get some data.
Hmm.
Um, get all of your, like, print out of all the families that are pre-K and K, depending on how you do your childhood, right? Or your early childhood stuff. Look at how their makeup. Think of things that are, where do they live? Where do they come from? Is it two, two families, single families? Do both parents work? Um, what are their pain points? What were their objections to school? Ultimately, what you want to figure out is what what are data points that are actionable for me?
Hmm.
So, for example, and then I'll give you an example of something that doesn't work, and then an example of one that does. When we went through this the first time and spent way too much time, we did all these studies and all this stuff. Somebody came back and said, our families read Town and Country magazine. And I'm like, well, so what? Like, I'm not advertising in Town and Country magazine, right? So for me, that's not actionable. But what is actionable for our, and one persona we used was that it was two working parents. It was a mom. It was she intentionally. It was mom. They lived north of where our school was. They both worked. Or I already said that.
Hmm.
They were first generation independent school family. So the parents don't know the vernacular. They don't know that you're supposed to start in the fall, right? Or
Yeah. Yeah.
so they might look in May. So but that changes the dynamic. And then so think of those actionable things. Think of their pain points. So for that persona, it was before care, after care, transportation, and then think of objections, and then try to answer those objections. Have those. From there, it's very simple. Give that person a name, preferably not somebody that's real because it's fictional.
Yeah.
And then I would recommend having coffee with two or three families that are close to that persona. and then ask them questions. So I think that kills two birds with one stone. One, it's friend raising, it's making families feel good, it's finding out about their experience. You can never do enough of that.
Hmm.
But from a marketing perspective, um, talk to them, see where they not shop, but just see how they interact. Talk to them about pain points, and then pay attention to their language, because if that person is using, let's just say it's the mom, using certain language, you want to remember those phrases to use in ads or landing pages. You want to speak to that person, so that the persona, so you're going to attract that right fit family. And then it really gets interesting. So if you give that person a name, think about what she would type into Google, and does your school come up? And then one caveat, you have to use, I know you know this, Jesse, but royal you, an incognito window,
Yeah.
or a different browser that you don't use, because Google knows everything. It's scary as a human, but it's great as a marketer. So use an incognito window, type in that phrase. And then for us at Sewickley, initially it was Pittsburgh Private School, and we didn't even show up on the first 3 pages
Mm.
because we were Sewickley Academy in Sewickley, Pennsylvania. We never talked about Pittsburgh. So
Mm.
location, that's a
Mm.
whole nother thing. But think of that phrase, type it into Google and see where you show up. Oh, and it should be non-branded. So you're not, so branded versus non-branded. Branded would include your school's name. These would
Hmm.
be non-branded keywords. So I hope that's it
No, I
helps.
mean that's
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 where to start.
excellent advice. I mean, really, it's essentially building a blog through the site. But to get to that point, you need to do the research on building who your persons are,
Yeah.
getting and talking to them so that you can start to use their language. Really having that incorporated in those articles that you're writing. Keep it non-branded.
Yeah.
The content that you're putting there, and do those incognito window searches from what you found out through your persona research and your conversations with those parents. Hey, are we going to show up here? Are we not going to show up here? We're not. Okay, let's start building some content that will push us up
Yeah.
on this ranking. And then from there, once you get that basics down, now we can start going on into the nuanced methods of inbounds in that regard. Excellent.
Oh,
I
there's
really
always
appreciate
more to.
that sound advice for anyone looking to get that started. I know I've taken notes myself here, so that's great. As we wrap up the first season, we always like to, kind of talk and look a little bit ahead. And since, you're here, you just started in July, you've still got
Yeah.
the excitement. It hasn't, boiled down and weighted you down yet. Where do you see inbound going? Like, where do you see the biggest growth and opportunity? Is it really as simple as just getting started, or are there some new ways of interaction that you think schools should kind of get on board with here in the next year or so?
Yeah, that's a good question. And in thinking about it, Jesse, I'm not sure I have anything more profound than to say I hope schools just start to use it more.
Yeah.
It's sometimes I get sick of myself saying it, so I can only imagine what schools are saying. But they need to do this. They need to start to explore this. And even if, we're 2022 right now in the fall, even if they just start to learn and push it out to say, you know what, I can't even process that till the 23-24 school year. That's fine, but just get a path. Just start reading in your spare time. Just start
Yep.
learning. Bring little things in. I mean, when we started, I didn't do the quote unquote correct steps like persona, keywords. Like we were jumping around because I didn't know any better, but at least we started to experiment. And then
Yep.
I thought, oh, that's why you go in that order. So even if you can't get in that order, just start to learn about it and get it going. Because I really do believe the schools that implement it are going to be ahead of the game versus the schools that don't. Because the schools that don't are just going to keep, I always joke, it's the definition of insanity, right? You're doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. Schools, we're notorious for that, man. Schools do that all the time. So like, start thinking about it. Good things will happen. Yeah.
Well, that's good. Always love looking on the horizon here, kind of giving them some insights on what's going on now, and then, where it might be in in the future. But Brendan, I really appreciate the time that you come on here. I wish you nothing but the best of luck in your endeavors. I know we will be in contact and hopefully be seeing each other soon at some conference somewhere. So I really appreciate the time. I know it was good insights for me, and I'm sure anyone that was listening.
Jesse, thanks, man. I love what you guys are doing, and happy to be, I guess, guest one on an episode or season
Guest
2,
one,
man. I feel
season
honored. This is
two.
great.
Big deal, man. It's a big deal. We got to get an autograph.
Yeah, you just have to meet my wife. She keeps me humble. It's good.
Fair enough. All right, Brendan. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, Jesse.